Alright, so my favorite thriller author wrote a horrible book. Horrible is a very strong word. I've definitely read worse, but I think this book particularly wounded me because I love Riley Sager so much. I gave his book Home Before Dark 5 stars. My favorite book he's written is Lock Every Door. Without any question, he's my favorite thriller author. So I was super excited to get this book because it features a very claustrophobic setting. You're stuck in a car with a person who you think is a murderer. In thrillers, I really like that trapped feeling because you can just squeeze so much emotions when the walls are feeling like they're closing in on you and the character. But just as a thriller, I feel like it just does everything wrong. First, let me tell you what the summary of Survive the Night is. Survive the Night is about our girl, Charlie. Charlie loves movies. She's obsessed with them. That's what she's been studying in college, but not anymore. She's dropping out of college. Why is she dropping out of college? Because one night she got into a big fight with her best friend. Both of the girls were just so done with each other's antics. Charlie looked at her friend, she's like, you can walk yourself home, and she left. But like, she looked over her shoulder once as she was leaving her friend, and she saw her friend, her roommate, her bestie, talking to this strange, mysterious male figure. Charlie didn't think a thing about it and just continued walking on. The next day, her friend is murdered. Dead. Her corpse has a tooth missing. That is the calling card, the signature of the infamous campus killer at her college. So yeah, Charlie's feeling mighty guilty. Her best friend's family is calling nonstop because Charlie told the police that she caught a glimpse of the person who might have killed her best friend, that mysterious guy figure who she caught a glimpse of. But there's something strange about Charlie. She slips into these movies in her head. Like, she'll just upright see something that just isn't there. And her mind will just play it out like a movie until it ends and she's just like jolted back into reality. Charlie doesn't really know if she actually saw someone with her best friend or if that was a hallucination or not. So she tells the police, I might have saw someone and I might have not. Her best friend's family catches wind of that, so they're calling Charlie like, can you tell us more about it? Why aren't you telling us about it? But Charlie honestly cannot help them. She can't even remember what this maybe fictional character looked like. He was just all shadows. It's just too much guilt, too much stress. And Charlie, she drops out of college and she plans to go back home to her, I think it's her grandma. So Charlie, she breaks up with her nice boyfriend. You know, it's a amiable parting. He understands. He's also really saddened by it, but he understands. He offers, well, he tries to offer to take her back to Ohio. I think that's where she's from. Don't quote me on that. But he can't because he can't get off of work. So Charlie has to post like a notice on the the ride share board at her college. So when she goes up to it, she put a little thumbtack on her little piece of paper saying, hey, I need a ride to so-and-so. I'll share gas money with anyone who has a car. She sticks that notice on the board, and just as soon as that happens, a guy, he appears, and he's like, oh, you're going to the same place I'm going to. That's awesome. If you'll split the gas money with me, I'll be happy to have you as a passenger. Charlie can't believe her luck. She didn't really expect anyone to take this offer of hers. And so they agree, and they just start off on their little road trip. But the longer they're driving together, Charlie starts to get the clues together that this guy next to her isn't who he says he is. He has multiple driver's licenses in his wallet. The bits of his backstory that he's telling her aren't meshing together. So she starts to think, I think this guy is the guy who killed my best friend. And I'm next. The setting is just perfect for a thriller. I already mentioned before how I like that trapped feeling, that so many things are just botched, and I'm gonna get into it. Of course, I always liked Riley Sager's writing style, so it was easy to read, and I was hooked on that. Charlie as a protagonist wasn't fantastic, but she wasn't horrible. She was just okay. She's a good point of view to be in. She's serviceable because I just want to watch the story happening around her. But the story that happens around her, it's not like it's stupid, but the people in it are stupid. This review from here on out is going to be all spoilers. So if you need to click off now, I'll give you a little short summary. Charlie's habits of slipping into her movies, these hallucinations, makes her a very unreliable narrator, which is used in thrillers a lot. I've never been fond of that trope, but they're always there, so I gotta get used to them. However, because she's never really certain if what she's seeing is real or not, it makes the timeline confusing as to what's real and what's not. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first Riley Sager book that's had multiple point of views instead of just the main girl's point of view, which I was excited for. But it's also one of these point of views the writer just straight up lies to us. Like, I know it's the job of a thriller to deceive the person, but you have to lay out clues. You have to make the ending twist plausible with everything you've built up from the beginning and the middle. In this one point of view, not going to tell you who because it's a big spoiler, but we're in their thoughts and we're experiencing the feeling of what they're doing right now. We're them and they're the bad guy. However, the way the chapter is written, it's as if they're perfectly innocent. Like, just the way that they're thinking. Like, this person that they're after. Even though the point of view chapter is in their point of view and in their thoughts, it's as if the writing of their chapters as if they've never seen this person before, but they are 100% after that person because they're the villain. It's a chapter made to specifically mislead the reader, but by doing so, it's lying. Like, it does not make sense narratively. It doesn't make sense, the narrative. Also, like, the motivations for this villain is so dumb. Like, they got nothing to lose, but they also know that the person that they're after doesn't have what they're after, but they're still going after them anyway, so like, why? One person in this book, multiple point of views, is also undercover. So they have an alias going on, but the alias that they're using is the worst possible alias cover-up facade that they could possibly pick, and it does nothing but hurt their mission, and it's stupid. Like, why'd you pick this person to pretend to be? And lastly, the last thing that I hated in this book, it has, I can't tell you what type of ending it is because it's a spoiler, but it's one of the most cliched endings in books and movies, and I've always hated it. And it's here, and it kind of cheapens everything we experience, even though I don't like everything we experience in this book. So it was just like the final nail in the coffin to me. So from this point on, I'm going to walk you through what happened in this book and every bit I did not like. You know, I didn't take any notes while reading this, and I'm so mad at myself. So if I make a mistake, don't hate. Just relate. So Charlie and this mysterious Josh character who's offered her the ride. They're going, I think it's Ohio, but I don't know. But let's just say they're going to Ohio, okay? Wink, wink. I can't wink. At least not convincingly. So Josh and Charlie, they're heading to Ohio. Charlie is finding mounting evidence that Josh, I think she went to go open the glove box and his wallet bounced out. She picked it up and she saw that his driver's license, it wasn't his name. It wasn't Josh. So yeah, that's shady Josh, whatever your name is. She starts to find more and more clues that he's lying to her. Like, I think maybe his license plate wasn't from the state he said he was from, so Charlie's like, what the heck is this about? Or at least the state his residence is currently in. Oh, he also admitted to lying about being a student at the college. He's actually much older than he appears. Yeah, that is sus. Charlie wants out of the car, but what's she gonna do? He's her ride. She's stuck with him. Well, Charlie does she gets him to pull over at a pit stop, a rest area, and she goes to the women's bathroom, like hoping for a woman to be in there to be like, hey, help me. She finds one, but Charlie has one of her episodes, so she freaks out, freaking out the lady, and lady's like, girl, stop drinking whatever you're drinking. She just leaves her. So Charlie has to go back with Josh. And it's around this time where, oh, shocker, we actually switch point of views to Josh's point of view, which surprised me because I didn't know the point of views would change. So I was building up my theories. And I'm like, okay, obviously Josh is lying about something, but it is too obvious for him to be the killer. He can't be the killer. And so when we go to Josh's point of view, immediately he's like, oh, I bet she's trying to, because like he's sitting in the parking lot waiting for Charlie to come out of the bathroom. So he's sitting there gripping the steering wheel like, oh, I bet she's trying to escape me. Bet she's trying to find a woman to give her a ride. So like, oh my gosh, is he the killer? But as I'm reading this and how he's like, oh, she saw my fake ID. Let me switch that out with my Josh ID. So he puts the original one that said like Jake or John, like in his pocket or something. So obviously, yeah, that's crazy. I guess he is the killer because he specifically says that he has set out to find Charlie specifically. But as I'm reading this, I'm like, I don't think you're the killer. Obviously, you have multiple IDs for some reason, so you are something, but I don't think you're the killer. Charlie gets back into the car with him, and this is one of the moments that annoyed me. But Josh, who Charlie believes is the campus killer, He's driving. He's like, oh, let's play a game. Can you guess what I'm thinking about? And Charlie's like, yeah, I'll play your game. Anything to just pass time. Keep him talking. Maybe he'll slip up a bit. And he does in the stupidest way. So he's playing a game where you have to think about some object he's thinking about. He's like, oh, humans have them, but they aren't born with them. And the answer to that Charlie eventually guesses is a tooth. This is important because, like I said earlier, her friend, when she was killed, her corpse was missing a tooth. So ring, 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 ding, 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 alerts, he's the campus killer. And this just solidifies it in Charlie's mind. Why would he pick a tooth out of all things for this random game he insisted on playing? They go to some toll booth. When Josh was trying to pay, Charlie was thinking about running, but for some reason, I can't remember why, she doesn't. And after the toll is paid, she asks him, did we actually play that game? He's like, what game? So this is the confusing part. That game they played where the answer was the tooth, Charlie now believes that was just one of her movies, and Josh is playing along yeah, what are you talking about? We didn't play that. You just sat there in silence looking out the window. Now Josh knows she has these movie things in her mind and that she'll just blank out because she stupidly told him about them as soon as she got into the car, basically. They really did play that stupid tooth game, and he just wanted to do it to freak her out. But even he realized he went a little too far with that. So when she asked, was that real or was that a movie? He's like, that was a movie, girl. He didn't say anything. Just to keep her in his car a little bit longer. But y'all both so dumb. You're both so dumb. Why, if you're a serial killer, bring up the one little, signature of your killings, removing a tooth? When you get into a car with a stranger, why are you going to talk about your condition that renders you basically helpless for a good 2 or 3 minutes? Not smart. So they keep driving and they get to a diner. I forgot to mention, before the diner and during the tooth game, which happened but now Charlie thinks was just a hallucination, when they were going back and forth with the questions to get to the final answer that it's a tooth he's thinking about, a police cruiser was driving beside them. So Charlie had fogged up the window with her breath and spelled out help in the fog. That happened during the movie. So because she thinks it was happening during her hallucination, that there's no fog there. She doesn't think she did that in real life. But I guess she passes under the right lighting and it lights up the window and reveals that the help sign is still there on the window, which means if it's really there, the movie really did happen and Josh is lying about not playing the tooth game. So now Charlie knows he's definitely lying about everything. So she's like, please, let's just pull over and get some coffee or something. It's late night, let's get some food. So now they pull up at the diner. Josh is now perfectly aware that she knows everything and is trying to worm her way out. Charlie is trying to get to the diner so that she'll be able to get to a payphone or something. They get to the diner, they get to the payphone. Notice how I said they. Josh won't let Charlie go anywhere without him. She goes to the phone booth. He's right outside. He can hear everything. So instead of calling the police, Charlie calls her boyfriend and gives him the special code words they established beforehand before she left, signifying that she's in trouble. She's able to give him her location, and her boyfriend is speeding on his way right now to go pick her up, try to save her. Because he doesn't know exactly what's going on. He just knows she's in trouble and she's with a strange man. But they have to wait an hour for him. So Charlie goes out of the phone booth, pretends everything is fine. She's just checking in with her boyfriend like she usually does, and they go into the diner. Now at the diner, we meet this waitress called Marge, I think. Marge, for some reason, gets a lot of detail about just her whole description, like what she's wearing, what her face looks like, what her hair looks like. And I'm like, she's the villain. Because if you've seen my video on 3 ways on how to tell who the killer in a thriller is, if they are overly described, it's them. And also, remember how I told you Charlie's best friend's family keeps calling Charlie? It's primarily the grandma, who is around Marge's age, who keeps calling Charlie. So I'm like, oh my gosh, it's her best friend's grandma. This is some type of revenge scheme. Marge, the waitress, sits them down. Mr. Josh orders a steak dinner. Charlie orders some French fries. And during her waitressing, Marge accidentally spills coffee or something all over Charlie. So she takes her to the bathroom. Now, even though I'm convinced Marge is either the campus killer or is just trying to do something with Charlie. Oh, no, I was definitely convinced. I don't know how I feel about Josh, but I knew he was scummy. So I think he was the campus killer, and Marge was just up to some I'm gonna avenge my granddaughter scheming. So Marge takes Charlie to the bathroom. Then we do another point of view jump into Marge's point of view, and this threw me off completely because Marge just seems like a normal woman. She's like, oh, I'm Marge. I have a husband. He keeps making fun of my pointy elbows. Oh my gosh, I noticed this girl and this guy came in my cafe, and the girl looks antsy. Like she doesn't want to be with this guy. I'm gonna spill some coffee on her and I'm gonna make sure, get her away from the guy, make sure she's not in trouble. So she seems like just an astute old lady. Like, oh, she's picking up on the signs. This is actually a good lady. So I felt bad. I'm like, oh, look at me. I'm judging this good lady just because she was overly described in the book. I'm a horrible person. So Marge, the waitress, talks to Charlie in the bathroom as she's cleaning her up. Like, are you okay? Do you want to be with that man? And Charlie, for some reason, is like, oh, we're fine. Yeah, we're good. It's justified in the book that she doesn't want to get Marge involved. Have Marge secretly call the police while you go back into the booth. Meanwhile, Josh is really antsy. He's like, what are they doing in the bathroom? And he also knows the jig is up, that she suspects him of something. So, get this, when Charlie comes back into the booth and Marge, who totally believes now that nothing is going wrong between the two, she's just off in the kitchen now. Josh asks Charlie, like, do you want to ride with me? You seem like you're very uncomfortable with me. Why don't I just leave? You stay here, call your boyfriend, call your parents or something, and we just part ways. The killer just gave you a perfect out, lady. Call his bluff. But Charlie, she had this moment in the bathroom after Marge left, like, I will not let this man push me around any longer. He pushed my best friend around. He's killed countless other women. I'm going to stand up to him and see that he's brought to justice. So when he offers to not drive her around anymore, she says, no, I'm going to ride with you. You're so dumb. Even Josh is like, okay, let's get back in my car. Oh, and you remember the phone call to the boyfriend? Boyfriend actually did call the police, and he sent the local police over to the diner. And the police did come up to the booth with Charlie and Josh and asked if everything was okay. Charlie said everything was fine. I really don't like Charlie. True, I do think that Josh was like threatening her with a knife and or gun at this moment. Like he had it like under the menu where she could see it, but the police officer and Marge couldn't see it. But the police officer has a gun. Girl. So our brave, smart heroine, Charlie, gets back into the guy's car and she's like, I know who you are. I know what you've done. And so Josh, as they're driving, he's like, all right, then you know what comes next. And Charlie, she had actually taken the steak knife Josh had been threatening with earlier under the menu, like back at the diner. When he let that go to get out of the booth, she swiped it up and stuffed it under her sleeve or something. So now she like leans over and stabs Josh in the side. He's all like, ow, it hurts, Car goes all willy-nilly. Charlie's able to get out and she runs back to the diner. I'm pretty sure Josh passes out at this point, but he ain't dead. He's not dead. Charlie runs back to the diner. The diner is closed by now, but Marge's car is still, in the parking lot. So Charlie bangs on the door, like, let me in. Hello, are you still there? Marge opens up and she's like, oh, sugar, what happened to you? Because she's covered in Josh's blood. And Charlie's like, yes, the guy was crazy. I'm sorry, lad. Do you please? Police? Ambulance? I don't know. Help me out. And Marge's like, all right, come inside. Come on. So they go in, and guess what happens? Charlie just turns her back for a second, and Marge comes around with a chloroform rag and just, unconsciouses her. Marge was the villain. So what had happened here was Marge is, as I suspected, the grandmother of the best friend. She has terminal cancer at this point. She has nothing to live for except the idea of revenge for whoever killed her precious granddaughter. The only potential clues that she has is Charlie who saw the shadowy figure but doesn't remember because of her hallucination movie selective amnesia thing. Trauma amnesia, you know what I'm talking about. So grandma is like, oh, she just needs a little roughen up to jog her memory. So she hires a private detective kind of guy, Josh, to get her to go to the diner. So the diner was a prearranged location. Yeah, Josh is basically an he's a PI, he's a private eye. And for some reason, he was fine with leading Charlie to believe he was the campus killer to get her to go to the diner. If Charlie wasn't so stupid and had the chance to escape at the rest stop like she tried to, why would you think pretending to be the guy who traumatized her? Why would you think that's a good idea? So stupid. So Grandma is the bad guy. Josh is a bad guy, but he's not the campus killer bad guy. Grandma is not the campus killer, so who's the campus killer? We have to rewind. So typically with me, with thrillers, about 50 pages in, I'll just come up with this wild, doesn't make sense theory. This is the theory that will happen, the ending that will happen if this book is just horribly written. My brain, 50 pages in, was like, oh, the boyfriend's the serial killer. Guess who was right? Me. There was no evidence to go off of, but I just knew if this book turned out to be bad, that is the bad resolution that would happen, because we don't see Mr. Boyfriend for a long time. Mr. Boyfriend, after calling the police, who didn't do anything at the diner because Charlie said everything was fine, I think he gets a call from the police, I don't know, saying, oh, yeah, she refused our help, something like that. He's like, I don't trust that. No, something's going on. So he gets in his car and he goes to the diner. I cannot remember why he does this when he first arrived at the diner, where it's just Marge in the car, Marge in the parking lot. But for some reason he breaks her. Oh wait, I remember. Sorry, I'm bad at this. While Marge has Charlie tied up in the restaurant still, boyfriend does show up. He's banging on the door. Marge says, you better be quiet, Charlie, or I'm gonna kill him with this gun. So she leaves Charlie in the kitchen and she goes up to see boyfriend at the door. She lets him in. She's like, sorry sir, we're closed, you need to leave. Boyfriend's like, hey, did you see a girl here, so-and-so height, so-and-so hair, she's my girlfriend, she sounded like she was in trouble, she said she was here. Marge is like, oh, nope, haven't seen her, bye. So boyfriend is forced to leave, but for some reason, I can't remember why, he doesn't trust Marge. So he takes a crowbar and he smashes Marge's rear light. And at this point I'm like, oh, he's smart. But that was also that is suspiciously smart, because he plans on following Marge's car when she leaves. And it's easier to follow someone if they have a missing taillight. So he's waiting in the parking lot now for Marge to get in the car. He sees Marge dragging Charlie out into her car and she drives away. Boyfriend follows. So we get back to the revelation that Marge is grandma, Josh is private eye. So who's the campus killer? It's not Josh anymore, and we only have one other male in the book who is also scarily smart when it comes to following someone. It has to be boyfriend. It's definitely boyfriend. And it wasn't a surprise. Oh yeah, Josh, he's still bleeding in the car. I can't remember if he drove back to the diner or if he drove back to the next location that they had decided upon. Because now Marge is taking Charlie from the diner to this old abandoned resort, like a log cabin sort of thing, where she's gonna interrogate her, torture her. You know, she's got a little wrench, some pliers, and she's gonna yank Charlie's teeth out just to help her relive the night. Maybe she'll remember what the killer looks like. So Charlie, she's screaming, she's panicking, she's like, I can't remember, I don't remember. And Josh, who has suddenly grown a conscience after torturing psychologically a girl through a whole car ride by pretending to be her best friend's murderer, he's suddenly a good guy. And after sewing himself up with a first aid kit from his stab wound, fresh stab wound on his side, he causes the diversion, makes Marge leave Charlie, lets Charlie go free. And so now they're running out of the log cabin. Marge comes back and shoots Josh. I honestly don't remember if he lived or died, but basically his story ends here. Josh is gone for now. In just terms of importance, he might be alive, but we don't need him anymore. Somehow during this whole kerfuffle, a fire gets started. So now the log cabin is burning alive. You already had this happen, Riley Sager, and lock every door, and it was much betterly done. I know betterly isn't a word, but come on. Let me do me. Marge is now chasing Charlie around. Fun and games. So cool. Awesome. How did this end? I think Robbie hits Marge in the head. Robbie's the boyfriend. I finally found out his name. I think boyfriend comes along and hits Marge with a crowbar or something, makes her drop the gun. Marge tries to shoot Robbie, who's trying to save Charlie. He gets grazed. Charlie somehow gets a hold of Marge's gun. Marge is like, shoot me, I have nothing to live for. Charlie's like, no, I refuse, and she throws the gun into like a dirty pool. So now Charlie and Robbie, happy lovers, reunited again. They get back in his car and they start driving away. They leave Marge, you know, they just had enough of Marge. They don't leave her to die, but are like, hey, if you want to kill yourself, there's a raging inferno right there. Do it yourself. So they leave Marge and Josh, who might be alive, who might not be, I don't know. But anyways, boyfriend and girlfriend driving away. And this is when the big reveal that we did not think would happen takes place. Boyfriend is the serial killer because she opens up his glove box for some reason. And she finds like this little can. And in the can are teeth, the trademark of the campus killer. And Charlie's like, oh my gosh, what is this? So much betrayal in one night. And boyfriend's like, oh shoot, looks like you're gonna have to die now. So they're tussling, they're fighting and stuff. The car, because they're not being safe drivers, no. It goes flying into water. Probably a river. They're sinking now, struggling. Charlie, for some reason, has a pair of handcuffs. I have no idea why. Did she steal them from the police when he came to the diner? Did Marge have her handcuffed? I don't remember, but she has handcuffs. So while they're tussling and stuff and water's filling up the truck, she handcuffs her boyfriend's wrist to the steering wheel. She swims out a window and leaves serial killer boyfriend to drown. That is a horrific way to die, but he's a jerk, it's fine. So that's the ending of the hijink shenanigans. But it's revealed, and I hate this ending, that all the story we just witnessed was a movie. And Charlie has been watching, when I say movie, I don't mean hallucination movie, I mean actual on the TV movie. It is a movie made from the true story of Charlie's life. You know, they wanted to make a movie out of it. And Charlie's watching it and she doesn't really feel anything particular towards it. It's even said that some of the events were exaggerated, like the cabins didn't actually catch on fire. In the fake movie, Charlie and Grandma have a reunion scene at the hospital where she gives Grandma one of serial killer boyfriend's teeth as a, here you go Grandma, I got revenge for you. But that actually never happened. That just happened in the movie, because in real life, Marge actually did kill herself with the gun she asked Charlie to kill her with. So they never had a reunion scene. So that just made me question again what was actually real in this book. It's kind of like that and everything was a dream ending, and I hated it. So the book ends of Charlie realizing that real life is better than movies. That's it. I wasn't pleased. It wasn't good. If I could recommend a Riley Sager book to you, Lock Every Door was good. Home Before Dark. Final Girls was interesting. Not this one, please. Don't do it. That's my spoiler review. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you understand my frustrations. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and stay ready, my friends.